I am the chemistry tutor Aparna Sharma, and we are going to continue the chapter Atomic Structures, which we started yesterday. Hope you are all able to see my screen. And this is our website play6.com. If we go to practice, we are having different packages available. Since now we are doing a crash course of NEET, we need to go to NEET Premium, which has all the subject test papers. If you go to individually the subject, that will have chapter wise test, and if you go to NEET full test, it is a complete 3-hour test paper. There are 15 test papers which is prepared by Play6 tutor, and you are having 22 test papers which is nothing but the previous year paper. All the papers are solved, so you are full free to take the test, and once you complete the test, you will be comfortable enough to find out the answer of each question wherever you have gone wrong. Now let us start our session and continue the chapter structure of atom. So let me open the revision notes. If you click on revision notes, that opens into a new tab. Since it takes some time, it's already open for me. Let us continue the class. Till yesterday, we were talking about the atoms. We discussed about different combinations, but yesterday I started the concept of quantum numbers, which I just gave you a brief about it, but we need an explanation, complete explanation on the concept of quantum numbers, because there are many questions which occur in the exam related to quantum numbers. Hence, we should know each quantum numbers and relation between the quantum numbers. That is, how do we relate your principal quantum numbers to azimuthal quantum numbers, spin quantum numbers, magnetic quantum numbers, how they are interrelated with each other, or how do we calculate the form all the 4 quantum numbers if suppose we are given any one of the quantum number in the exam. So as I explain you each quantum number, I'll give you the sample question also related to that, so that you understand that in much better way. So when we talk about your quantum numbers, as I told you, principal quantum number, it is denoted by the symbol n. N says that all your principal quantum numbers will help you to find out the maximum number of electrons, or we can say it denotes orbital number. It denotes orbital number in more simple way. Or you could even say that it represents your shell number of the electron. Hence, if we are given the value of your n, suppose if I say 2, 3, 4, whatever. If I am given the value of n, how could I calculate the maximum number of electrons in a shell? Because as I told you, nucleus is in the center and electrons are revolving around the nucleus. And that we have discussed that it is the energy level. What is energy level? I already explained. The electrons in an atom will revolve around the nucleus only in certain selected orbit. So when it is revolving around a selected orbit, that means each shell should have its own capacity to accommodate the electrons. And that formula, that is 2n square, will help you to find out what will be the total number of electrons in each shell. If suppose I say, I am saying that your n value is 1, that means it should be 2 into n square, which is nothing but 2. Hence, I could say that, or I could conclude that the first shell could accommodate only 2 electrons, not more than that. If we go to the second shell of this, we could say that if I am saying n value second shell, that means our n value becomes equal to 2. Hence, we will say that it is 2n square, which will become 2 as to the 8. Hence, your can come to a conclusion that your second shell can accommodate 8 electrons. In the same way, we are having your next quantum number, that is your azimuthal quantum number. What do we understand from your azimuthal quantum numbers? An azimuthal quantum number is denoted with the symbol L. An azimuthal quantum number is going to help you, or it is going to describe the shape of the orbital that an electron is going to occupy. Or simple term, you can say that this is the shell, means how much, or azimuthal quantum number will help you to find out the number of subshell which is going to be present in your main shell. Hence, I should know what should be the relation between my n. We have told that it is the main shell or it is the principal quantum number. Hence, if I know the n shell, how will I relate that to your L? That is nothing but the subshell. So there should be some relation between the shell and the subshell. Hence, the formula says for that is, we are having the number of subshell and it will take up the value from 0 to n minus 1. You will have a relation for your azimuthal quantum number as what if they have given you the value of n. For example, let us say that I have given you the value to be for n to be equal to 1. So what will be the relation between this n and L? The relation says that L will always be equal to, or L is starting from 0 to n minus 1. Thus, if we are saying n is equal to 1, that means L will take up the value to be 0, 1 minus 1. So you can conclude from this is L, when your n value is equal to 1, your L value is 0. And that subshell, it is given a name, and we say that when your value of L for 0, L is 0, we say that it is S orbital. Or in detail in coming chapters about each subshell we study SPDF. So if I say my n value is equal to 2, if n value is equal to 2, you need to calculate your L to be 0 to n minus 1. So if I say that n is equal to 2, 0 to n minus means include 0, 0, 1, n minus 1 up to. Hence you will say that it is n minus 1. So P takes up 1, D. In the similar way you can calculate. How do we relate our magnetic quantum numbers to the azimuthal quantum number or your principal quantum number? We should know the relation as your magnetic quantum number is related to azimuthal quantum number with a formula or with a relation. You could say whatever is the value of your L, you have to take it as minus L to L, minus L to L. So hence, if I am saying my P value, let us take that L value, I have given it to be equal to 1. If I give L is equal to 1, I should say that P will be equal to minus L to L, minus L, 0 and 1. Do not forget minus L to L or minus L to plus L. If you say 0 comes in between. Hence, you have to consider 0 also for your magnetic quantum number. And this magnetic quantum number will help you to determine the orientation, that is preferred orientation, you will be able to find out. And the last quantum number is your spin quantum number. We do not have much detail or any calculation for that, because you know it will rotate either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So if I say clockwise, it will take it as to be equal to plus half, and if you are saying anti-clockwise direction, it will take up to be equal to your minus half. There is no much formula or any relation we need to calculate related to that. So if you are saying quantum numbers, we should know each and every quantum number, what it is and how it is related with each other. And based on your quantum numbers, I'll just give you a sample how the questions will be, because it is one of the important formats on which basis they ask the question. That is very important. They may give you the value of your n, they may give you the value of your L, they may give you n, it depends. So suppose if I say a question as they have given us which of the following set of quantum numbers are not allowed. If I say n is equal to 3, L is equal to 2, your ml value, ml some places it is given as only m, some places it is denoted as ml, that is for your magnetic quantum number, and spin doesn't matter, plus half and your minus half. So if a set of quantum numbers is given to you, you should be able to predict that which quantum number cannot form a combination. So we should always remember that the set of quantum number has to follow certain rules. That is, your principal quantum number n value, it should always be positive. It should always be positive. And it has to be positive because based on this value we calculate our L, based on L we calculate our magnetic quantum number, hence this has to be positive. And L can be any integral value from your 0 to n minus 1, and ml we have already discussed, it is minus L to L. Hence they may give you certain set of quantum numbers and you have to pick which can form a set of 4 quantum numbers. For that, you should know the rules, you should know the relation between each. Because quantum numbers are very, very important. Somewhere or the other, you will come across these type of questions. That is why I have done a additional session on this, because it's very, very important. And some places, even they may, if you do the test in our package, some tests you will come across these type of questions. So it is important that you take the test and see how the question format is. If you are coming up, some places they may give you only the value of n and they may ask you to calculate the other quantum numbers. For example, if I am saying that given in the given question, if it is the principal quantum number is 2, please choose the other possible, from the possible option you need to choose which are all the possible quantum numbers. Hence you can calculate using this relation and you could conclude which option could be the right answer. This type of question you will come across many places or many tests, many previous year paper. When you try to take that, it will be existing. And some theoretical portion we need to discuss from this chapter, that is if we learn what is wave and the relation between your frequency, velocity, what is wave number, what is amplitude. So when you are talking about a wave, we say that it has a crest and a trough. And the height, if you are saying that, we say it as an amplitude, that is nothing but it can be the height of your crest or the trough, doesn't matter, but it is considered as an amplitude. There is a relation between your frequency and your wavelength. If we know the frequency or wavelength, we could come to a conclusion how do we relate the velocity. And there is a wave number, which is nothing but the number of wavelengths, but here the criteria is it should be per centimeter. If we are able to calculate the number of wavelengths per centimeter, then that we term it as a wave number. This is a very simple concept which even you will be studying in physics. And when you come to your concept of your electromagnetic wave, you will be having a relation, or you can say range of their wavelength. Range of the wavelength. If suppose I'm talking about radio waves, that range is 3 into 10 to the power of 14 to 3 into 10 to the power of 7. In the same way, for each wave, you have a range. Why I'm focusing on the range? Because you should know that based on the range, the questions are given. Hence, I should know the range of that. If I say microwave, wavelength is between 3 into 10 to the power of 9 to 3 into 10 to the power of 6. If I consider infrared, 6 into 10 to the power of 6 to 7600. In the same way, you will have for your visible as well as ultraviolet rays, X-rays and your gamma rays. It's more important to know at least your visible rays and your gamma rays, ultraviolet rays. And your X-rays is between 150 to 0.1. Gamma rays, it is 0.1 to 0.01. These are all the range of their wavelength, and the unit I have not written, it should be in angstrom. So when you are talking about the range, why it is important? Because we have to calculate the atomic spectrum of your hydrogen atom, because everywhere you will come across question related to your series. Based on your value of the wavelength, you need to calculate in which series it will come. If I say series, you would remember atomic spectrum of your hydrogen atom. 1 by wavelength will give you have a formula RH 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. Here the question will arise, what is N1 and what is N2? This is nothing but the integral value, and RH, you know, it is Rydberg constant. And hope you all know the value of your Rydberg constant is 108,978 centimeter inverse. This is a standard value. But why we need N1 and N2, and how do we calculate the atomic spectrum for it? N1 and N2, it depends on the spectral region where it is falling, whether it is an ultraviolet region or your visible region or your infrared region. So based on the region, you are having the value of your N1 or N2, or you can say, if you know the value of your N1 and N2, you could decide the spectral region. It is vice versa. Any one you know, you will be able to analyze the other. If suppose I say N1 value is 1, and here it could be 2, 3, 4 and so on, then if you calculate the value based on this wavelength, you will be able to say which region it is falling or what is the spectral region for it. And based on that, you should be able to calculate your important part is spectral series. Spectral series will tell you, like you will have questions based on your Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen series. So based on that, you calculate your spectral series. In the similar way, if I say N1 value is equal to 2 and your N2 value takes up from 3, 4, 5 and so on, this spectral series, when you calculate it, you will come to a conclusion that the name it is given is Balmer series. Similar way, you can calculate for other Pasteur, your bracket, your P font. You will be able to calculate that. And next you need to study about photoelectric effect. What does it mean? Photoelectric effect is nothing but ejection of your electron is going to take place from your surface of the metal when light of important part is it should have a suitable frequency. When it has suitable frequency, then only electrons can be ejected. and maximum frequency required for ejection or maximum frequency which you will require for ejection is nothing but your threshold. That term you call it as your threshold frequency. So when I say your that is minimum frequency which we require for ejection of electrons, we say that term as your threshold frequency. So we say that as your threshold frequency. And energy of the ejected electron, do remember your energy of your ejected electron will be directly proportional to the frequency of the radiation. And second criteria you should focus is the number of electrons ejected per second will always depend on the intensity of radiation. Hence you say h mu minus your h mu naught will be equal to half mv square. And next is your Planck's quantum theory. According to your Planck's quantum theory, it's very simple to remember. Just this formula is important there. That is why I have highlighted only the formula. Do remember the energy of your quantum will be directly proportional to the frequency of the radiation. And when we say E is equal to h mu, as we all know, h is nothing but it is the Planck's constant and mu is nothing but the frequency of radiation. And h, this is a standard value, hence you should remember what is the Planck's constant. And do focus the unit of your Planck's which you are using it. And next we have to talk about your de Broglie, that is he derived a relation between your wavelength and momentum of your matter, and the relation says as lambda is equal to h mu. What does it say? It is lambda is equal to h mu. So de Broglie's relation is lambda is equal to h mu. Angular momentum, you can relate it to your you could relate it to your relationship says that de Broglie lambda is equal to h by. And one more atomic model which we should study is your Bohr's atomic model. Angular momentum, it is nothing but integral multiple of your h by 2 lambda, and energy you could calculate as E2 minus E1. E2 minus E1 is equal to h mu. And radius of your nth orbit, you could say that it is your 52.9 into n square by z cm, and energy of your nth orbit also. So do remember the formulas which you need to remember so that it will be helpful for you to calculate the sum. Okay. So we are done with the concept of your atomic structure. Let us do a test and analyze how much we have understood. If you go to chemistry, we have chapter-wise test. It is better that as and when you study the chapter, try to take the test so that you could feel how much you have understood. So this is our first question. We have to check which orbital is nearest to the nucleus. How do we calculate which orbital is nearest to the nucleus? As we discussed yesterday, we have a concept of your Aufbau principle. We have a concept of the Aufbau principle, and the arrangement of electrons in it will help you to find out which is being nearest to the nucleus among the given options. So how will you decide which is among the nearest or which is nearest to the nucleus? We have to analyze the concept of our Aufbau principle where electrons are being arranged. So among this, you have to choose, look at the series of your arrangement and you could find out which is being nearest to the nucleus. From the Aufbau principle, you will be able to calculate that, or you will be able to find that. And next question says the number of nodal planes are same. What do we mean, or how do we relate our nodal planes? The formula for your nodal plane says that the total number of nodes you could calculate in an orbit to be n minus 1. So the total number of nodal planes will be same. Here, if you look at the option, as I told you, this number, this is your n, that is your principal quantum number, and this is your subshell. So if I say nodal planes formula to be n minus 1, and I have to take n value. So immediately after looking at the option, we could very easily say that from the option of D, that is 4s and 4p, n value is same. That means ultimately our n minus 1 will also be same, and nodal planes will be same in your option D. Next is the number of d electrons which is present in your Fe2 plus, the number of d electrons. It's very simple. If you do the electronic configuration of your Fe2 plus, we could find out very easily that what is the electron, how many d electrons we will get. It is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, and your 3d6. So we could conclude from this that how many d electrons here, how many d electrons will be present? It should be your option B, that is 6. So it's very simple. You could do the electronic configuration and you could be able to predict the answer. Let us save that and go to next. Next question says, which subshell has the maximum energy? Which subshell has the maximum energy? Which subshell will have the maximum energy? It's very simple to find out, because as based on our Aufbau principle, if you do the arrangement, Aufbau principle has its own order, or you can say that n plus 1 value you will be able to calculate. So maximum energy based on the Aufbau principle, if you are making an arrangement, if you are checking that arrangement, you could come to conclusion that option C will be the right option. And the next question says, which electronic level will allow a H atom to observe a photon, but it will not emit a photon? The condition is, which electronic level should allow an H atom to observe a photon, but not an emit a photon? From the question itself gives an answer. It is a self-explanatory question. If I talk about ground state, that is at level 1, H atom, it will have the tendency to observe the proton. But since it is being at the ground level, it cannot emit a photon. That means it can reach to a higher level by observing photon, but there is no lower. That means it cannot emit photon because it's already at the initial. So immediately you can come to a conclusion that it is your 1s. You do not need any solving, and please focus on the time. This type of question we are supposed to take fraction of second to answer, so that we are able to save our time for numericals, the question which needs solving. We need to focus and we have to quick in answering these type of simple questions. Let us save that and go to next. The correct ground state electronic configuration of chromium atom. So it is important that you know the atomic number of your chromium. And if you are doing a simple electronic configuration for the chromium atom, we will be able to calculate that very easily. So if I am doing a electronic configuration, chromium atomic number of chromium is 24. And if you do an electronic configuration for this, it should be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 3d5, 4s1. So as you know, this portion takes up the electronic configuration of argon. Let us check 3d5, 4s1, where it is. We have in our option 1. So option 1 should be the right answer. Let us save that and go to next. Which of the following has maximum number of unpaired electrons? Which of the following has maximum number of unpaired electrons? It's important. So please, we have to do a simple step, that is, we have to do the electronic configuration of each one given in your option. Like if I say Mg2 plus, we have to find how many number of unpaired electrons, how many in each. That is your titanium. We have next option is B3 plus, Fe2 plus. So when we are doing an electronic configuration for each, you will be able to find out the number of unpaired electrons in each option. Currently, I am just giving you the the number of unpaired electrons in Mg2 plus will be 0. Ti3 plus, you should get it around, that is, it will be equal to 1. V3 plus it is 2, and Fe2 plus it will be 3. So among the given option, they have asked us which of the maximum number of unpaired electrons. That means maximum number of unpaired electrons is present in iron. Let us save that and go to next question. Magnetic moment of V, CR, Mn, R, X, Y, Z respectively. Hence, we have to say the order, because based on the option, how it is related with each other, we should be able to say that. So when we are saying the magnetic moment, they have asked, hence we should know how the magnetic moment is related to the, or what is the relation between the maximum moment and the unpaired electrons. There is a relation between the maximum movement and the unpaired electrons. How do we relate that? There should be a relation. Hence, we say that magnetic moment, you have a formula in order to analyze this. We could say simple. Magnetic moment is mu, and that is your root of n into n plus 2. And n is nothing but the number of unpaired electrons. It is nothing but the number of unpaired electrons. So when I say magnetic moment of V, CR, Mn, you could substitute, and that is, you can calculate the maximum number of unpaired electrons in the given option, substitute in place of n and calculate for each given option. That is, and here you need not do, or you need not worry, because already they have given you the atomic number. Hence, doing the electronic configuration becomes much simpler, and it will be easy for you to find out the number of electrons. And when you find out the number of unpaired electrons, you could easily substitute in this and you could reach to a conclusion. And when you calculate, we will have 3.873 as their magnetic moment, CR get 6.92, and your next option is Mn, that will take up the value 5.91 respectively. It is given. So when it is given, or this portion you will get on calculating by substituting the number of unpaired electrons to this value. N value find out the number of unpaired electrons, substitute, you will reach to this answer, and from this you can conclude that our option will be C. Next, magnetic movement of FeA plus is 24. They have given, hence number of unpaired electrons, and you need to calculate value of A. Do not get confused what is value of A, because see, they have used FeA plus. So if I calculate the number of unpaired electrons for this, just now we have discussed the relation between an unpaired electrons and the magnetic movement. So once if you calculate that, it says magnetic movement is your, we have written the formula, mu is equal to root of your n into n plus 2. This they have given it to be equal to root 24. That will be equal to your n, we do not know, n plus 2. Root you can cancel. 24 is equal to n into n plus 2. So when I say 24 is equal to n into n plus 2, you could calculate your n value from this and you will get it to be 4. And when n is equal to 4, that you can conclude that it is having 4 unpaired electrons. So when it is 4 unpaired electrons, very easily you can predict the configuration and you could say that it is Fe2 plus. So the first value it is 4 and your A. Do remember they have asked first is a number of unpaired electrons. You could very easily choose your option 2, 4, but this will be wrong one, because first they have asked number of unpaired and then the value of A. The option B is also correct, but it is in vice versa indicated. It is A. If you answer your B, that means the answer will be taken as number of unpaired electron is 2 and value of A is 4, which will be a wrong one. We need to give option A because they have asked first as number of unpaired electrons and next the value of A. Hence your answer will be 4, 2. Let us save and go to next. Which of the following has highest magnetic moment? The option they have given, here also you could apply your same relation, that as their number of unpaired electrons and their magnetic moment. So which is having the highest number of unpaired electrons, that will have the highest magnetic moment. There is a direct relationship between your magnetic moment and your number of unpaired electrons. So it will be very simple that from the given option you should calculate or you should find out which are all having the, what is the number of unpaired electrons present in each option, and you could conclude whichever has the more number of unpaired electrons, that will have the highest magnetic moment. So here if you choose from this option, Mn3 plus will have 5 unpaired electrons. Hence you could conclude that this will have the highest magnetic moment. That is a relation between your unpaired electrons and your magnetic moment. Let us save and go to next. Here it says that we have to, it says the magnetic movement of an electron in an atom is given by, this is the direct formula which we were discussing till now. Previous questions were solved using this formula, hence your option will be A. It is well known. How many unpaired electrons are there in Ni2 plus? If you do an electronic configuration for it, you will be able to find out the number of unpaired electrons present in Ni2 plus. How many unpaired electrons are there in Ni2 plus? What will be the electronic configuration of your Ni2 plus? Based on that, it will be very simple to find out the. So if I do the electronic configuration of your Ni2 plus, it's very simple. Ni2 plus will say as 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6 and 3d8. So when you are doing an electronic configuration, you should be able to find out that your Ni2 plus is having 2 unpaired electrons. You could see here it is 3d8. D will accommodate 10 electrons, hence it is having 2 unpaired. Hence our option should be D is the right option. Let us save and go to next. Determine the element of lowest atomic number that contains a complete D subshell in the ground state. Determine the element of the lowest atomic number that contains a complete D subshell in the ground state. So this is also a simple, just you have to do an electronic configuration of that and you will be able to find out that the element with the lowest atomic number that is going to contain complete D subshell in ground state will be copper. How do we say that? Copper has electronic configuration, or you can say atomic number of copper is 29 and the electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s1 and 3d10. So it is due to your field stability that we could conclude that copper will always achieve when electron is jumping to d orbital and it is a fully filled stability. Hence you could say that the element with lowest atomic number, please switch off your video. Hence our option should be copper. You could see here that there are 3 questions which are red. That means we would have solved or I would have not saved the answer. Let us go back to those questions. We have discussed. Let us save that answer. I would have missed to save it. In ground state, when chromium, we have to find out. So this will also be very simple to find out because just you have to do an electronic configuration and you will be able to predict the answer. And that is having 14 electrons has spin in one direction and 10 electrons they will be having in the other direction. So when I do an electronic configuration of your chromium, it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 3d5. So 15 electrons, you will come to a conclusion that it is in one direction. That may be clockwise or anti-clockwise, that we cannot predict. And the rest 9, you will have it in other direction. So if this is clockwise, the other will be anti-clockwise. If this is anti-clockwise, then the other will be clockwise. Hence, we could say that you will have 14 electrons that will be spin in. So we have concluded, they have given here 14 electrons spin in one direction, 10 electrons in other. But what we have found out, it is 15 electrons and 9. Hence, from the given option, your C option should be right because that gives 15 electrons have spin in one direction and 9 electrons in another direction. So we have completed the test, all the questions. There is some technical error because of which even though I have saved the answer, but it is still indicating red. Let us not worry about that and find out. Let me give end test. So when we give here end test, it says that question number 7 and 15, I have marked it as incorrect. So if you go to the question, whichever we have marked it as an incorrect, that will help you to find out that what should have been the right answer. So each question we could go and say that which is the, or we will find out the right answer. I think I said copper, but by mistake I clicked it on C. It is your copper. So you have marked the answer, and if you go to the question which you are wrong, you will be able to find out the right answer with explanation, which will be very useful for you to find your own mistake and learn the right answer. So by this, your chapter atomic structure is completed. Catch you on Monday with a new chapter, and you could refer to our website and you can ask your questions through the ask, and if you are having still any problem, you can communicate to us